Fernando, você tem falado isso desde sempre, você botou o dinheiro todo no início do mês, claramente teve mais depois. O fato é, eu só preciso ver contar algo muito importante. Você sabe o que eles fizeram no telefone? Depois
Rafael, eu não tenho. Se eu tivesse, eu botava. Eu não tenho. Eu tenho que esperar receber. Eu vou receber dia 26.
Então, isso faz o quê? Vê se você consegue botar lá. Tá? Tchau.
Não, eu vou botar agora.
The line. What does this line? All this process when I'm much, but I'm not losing the enthusiasm. I think I more or less know what to do. And the answer to what to think, because the issue is it's a calculated decision. The issue is, for perspective, the calculus comes from a very high price standpoint. Also, something was put inside the phones, this, I think during the night, what to say? The cable is not connecting too well. I tried to clear off with this, but this is not too good to clear off. You need to use this night. Yesterday that wasn't happening. To clear off, I need to use a needle. I have a sewer needle in the backpack, but it's in the backpack, which is sealed. I'm not opening it now. Things that I want to say. I was going to wait to sit down and have the phone, but given that my influence shaped the decision, the information in the video is new, because that's the reason why I mentioned this now. And the fact is simple. These females are like the criminals inside them, the bus talking about forgiveness, and they're glad this criminal saying that a lot throughout this. And the fact is, they are not reliable parties. They're gonna die from venom. As you saw, there was this cat that went in front of the place. As I said, the one deal that I actually openly made with criminals by essentially just talking on my own fucking phone was about them giving back Mama Cat's babies, which includes the baby, the one that you saw with this crazy disease that they do at birth. So, and I would mention that they literally stole some babies from a kid from a mother cat that they were not providing for, or owned, or did anything for, not even sheltered. And she, every single night, to go out crying for them, and in hopes that they'll come back to her. And I knew that they took them from them. And I knew the place as well. Because the first place she went to was the lamb place, right next to that place. And she jumped in immediately when they didn't come to her. So, 16th of December, I arrived at night. They were fine in the morning. It was one day after I slept with them. Like I slept in front of them, they slept behind me, sheltered. Over there where I leave my things now. And I was trying to use my body to shelter them. And to be fair, they were fine in the morning. But when I came back at night, they were nowhere to be seen. And she'll make her nest in the other place, which is what terrifies me every time that they do things like these. As for what I was saying, the best thing that describes is, and then they give them back to her 10 days after they took them. But then one by one, they took them away. And the baby now has this crazy disease. So this is what they are, no matter what. What they're doing is, the best way to quote this is, I don't know from which movie, but it's a famous Churchill quote from right beginning of the World War II, when the Italians were offering to mediate peace with the Germans in exchange for a couple of colonies in Africa. And Churchill, in very characteristic way, say, dude, if you can end this with a couple of colonies in Africa and whatever else it is, and probably Poland as well. There's no way that at this point he had expectations that the Germans would withdraw from Poland. He'll do that in a heartbeat, because, I mean, for ending World War II in 1939, I'm not saying that I, for instance, probably not give up on Poland, but The Allies' guarantees always flimsy. I mean, look at the French. They were guaranteeing Polish independence, but the entire defense strategy, the entire military strategy consisted on defense. How are you going to defend yourself and then get Poland to be liberated somehow? So again, they're always flimsy, and there's always more talk than actual action. And this is kind of open knowledge about that, even Poles knew. But either way, they didn't have a choice. Like me and Tiny, I suppose. And the issue though is but back to your point, to be fair, if you guys compare me, I'm more of a mind of your boy FDR. The way they were sticking up by Finland at the end of the war, or even Churchill was like, nah, they don't care. They were allies, they were Axis. And he was sticking up saying, yeah, but no, really, like, they're not Nazis, they were attacked by the Soviets, defending the home, to actual good payouts after. So, I say the Finns, I think I said the Finlands, but okay, you get the point. It's the Finns, the Finnish. So, and my point is, but it's just curiosity as far as the matter goes, is that one of the best quotes is, as I said that, which is, but that's not going to be the case. The Italians just would be taking the British for fools to just give them provinces of no actual response, because the Italians are going to enforce peace on the Germans, and most importantly, not even that influential, the Germans knew that they were going to do this to get some provinces for free out of British desperation. So, again, the point about the criminals is, as I said, they're not reliable partners, and most importantly, they can't be trusted, obviously, but most importantly, they have shown no signs whatsoever of any reasonable thing, because they ultimately, the things that they intend to do to change the world matter more than the things that they did to me. But the issue is, as I said, they cannot be trusted, and I have every reason. They abuse me, and those things are not easy to overlook. They torture me up to yesterday at night. They did through something on a kitten for no reason, something that can even be contagious to humans, which I still know we are going to check, because they found it funny. She caused the kitten to suffer for no reason, even that they didn't even spend much time of it. So, again, this is a level of something that functions in its own way. So that's the two major themes from movies that really exemplify that. One is this, the response to the mentality, because I am a reasonable person. I'm in fact, my mind is very similar to, as mentioned, Churchill, or more, as in the scale between ideologism and pragmatism, more like FDR instead of Churchill. But at the end of the day, both of them were pragmatists to a great degree. And my point is that. So, no, second times. The point is, if I can mention, be akin to one of those two, and with the caveat of being more closely to, but either, as I was saying, I was distracted, something's happening around me. So, but as I was saying, in my mind is that, so that there's another quote with Captain Jean-Luc Picard, but that's just a state of affairs as it is now. When I say, it's another way, fancy way, movie-like way of saying that, I don't know my fate, but I know that it has to do with you. And ultimately the assumption that, what I mentioned before, the entire world is not as rough as they are. Anyway. people want to be good, as most people do. So we have that. But most important, as far as I said, as far as the compromise of any sort. Yes, I do prioritize the good that I can do and the rest of my life over the past of my life. But the issue is, as I said, if I could give a couple concessions for exchange for peace in 1939, but that's not a reliable offer. It's just an attempt to fool. And again, much like this, I want you to take in perspective. It sounds obvious enough from you, but from my perspective, it's literally like the British in 39. To me, France is when Poland just collapsed. It was 39, it was 40. 40 even better. So they are desperate. Again. Tânia, escola? Oi, Tânia. Tá, Tânia, mas você recebe em 4 dias. Tudo bem. Algo mais? Tá, tchau. Enfim, as eu sei. So the point is, so yeah, it is desperate for me. Desperate. But what I'm thinking is I don't fully know the answer. How can I say? I'm just pointing it out. But it's not because I'm being reasonable. Because the thing is, as I mentioned, it was clever for the Italians to mention that anyway. The offer is free. You can even look so much, you can lie to people saying, hey, looking compromising, looking reasonable. And on the other hand, even if they refuse, it looks that way, and if they accept, you get the promises, and you should make no effective anything backing response for it. They're just giving you promises for free. Say promises using game technology, but you know what I mean, whatever confessions they want from colonies, I guess. And I mean, knowing what Chuvas would do you think there was any realistic chance the Italians would ever even decide to not join the war? They had practical plans for an next territory in core, mainly in territory in France. So again, in hindsight, it's always 2020 though. But my point is simple to say that it's not necessarily a bloodthirsty behavior, deciding vengeance over any other thing. Now they tortured me and abused us and abused those animals and killed members of my family, so it's not something that you can overlook. At the same case, it's not just vengeance, it's not this, blind thing that you just at any cost, any price. It's quite simple, pragmatic matter. That's the other thing that's been mentioned about the car with prominent commander. And this is where everything lies. So as I said, it's just a fancy way to say that there are a couple of those interactions. There might be something else involved as well. Lurking in the shadows. Maybe not. And therefore that's the point that given time and amount of time to pass, one way or another it boils down not to if, but when, and if when is not a problem, it's the guarantee boiling down to a simple matter of Dan is a damn good coach, but I don't think I should mention him. It is a fancy quote because it's for a guy who's essentially carrying a school bus through space, but it has to do with the traitor as well, which is pretty poetic, even though we haven't seen many of those things. Oh my God, the traitors of the German people. They're exalted now for their resistance and sticking to their own principles. That was risky. I mean, many of them would be buried out and rotting in some corpse somewhere close to a concentration camp. Others live up to see their children grow, much like many of the criminals working in those camps. But the issue is, again, you do the best you can with the things you have, and take the chances. And as I mentioned prior, it's not because it's ideal, it's just the options are given. I'm just saying that again, it's not out of a bloodthirst for revenge or blind hatred. Quite to the contrary, they hate me. The issue is and yes, I'm not saying that I would overlook easily the things that they did, because things they did were extremely serious. They were war crimes, and I stand by that. But, and also would never be some type of deal, quid pro quo deal for some type of compensation as if selling out, because that won't happen. But the issue is, I can, as I said, if given a couple of colonies were enough to end this, it is being World War II. Not to die in a heartbeat, but the issue is that's never a realistic proposition, and such as it is. Now, in this case, this is relevant for other people, and this is an important thing to say. Is one of the reasons I say this, because you see some individuals drawing on the felony front, which felonies are felonies. Even more true, regardless of war crime, just individual felonies, again, individual accountability in this collective crime. That's important to realize. It's not the type of thing that it has to be all or nothing as far as I'm concerned. I always try to be as reasonable as possible, despite the fact criminals do not. They're the ones being unreasonable. They're the ones with absurd things, absurd things, and doing things. Quite to the contrary, for most of the time, it tends to be quite reasonable. So, that's the point. Okay, you're going to touch on it so that they see that as weakness, because they really don't think straight. Much like this, some of them would see it as weakness. Because again, but for individuals that might be thinking on the possibility of war crimes compared to something that up to now is just a minor thing. The whole point is we have the classification for criminals from coffers to the more serious ones boils down straight to this. The idea that I fully appreciate the guy from recording for me every single day is not the same guy as who just acts weird naturally once. There's an entire different galaxy of responsibility. So, again, and I try to relate that to you the best way I can. Anyway.